my name is Ayan and I am representing Sustain Plus Energy Foundation. So the topic of today's session is, as you can see, solar irrigation systems for smallholders, failures and opportunities. In today's session, we are basically going to dwell mostly into our experience that Sustain Plus had along with its partners like IMI and other field partners. So as I was saying, we are going to dwell into the root cause of why there are still some failures associated with solar irrigation, despite the system, this being one of the oldest decentralized renewable energy system. आमतौर पे अगर हम लोग देखेंगे, सोलर इरिगेशन हमारे देश में 1990 के समय से दशक से है, और ये हम लोग जो विभिन्न तरीके का जो डिसेंट्रलाइज्ड रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी टेक्नोलॉजीज़ है उसमें से ये वन ऑफ द ओल्डेस्ट टेक्नोलॉजी है. इतना पुराना होने के बावजूद भी इसमें काफ़ी सारे चैलेंजेस है, तो उसको हम लोग आज थोड़ा समझने का कोशिश करेंगे. और इस सेशन के दौरान हम लोग उसको समझने के बाद हम लोगों ने किस तरीके से उसको उतारा है ज़मीन पे, उसको भी हम लोग देखने का कोशिश करेंगे. सेशन शुरू करने से पहले हम लोग एक छोटा सा वोटिंग करना चाह रहे थे. या इट्स विजिबल. या तो आप लोग ये QR कोड को स्कैन कर सकते हैं और आप लोगों को ये प्रश्न दिया जा रहा है, बेस्ड ऑन योर एक्सपीरियंस व्हाट्स द मोस्ट कॉमन रीज़न फॉर नॉन फंक्शनलिटी ऑफ सोलर इरिगेशन सिस्टम, और इसको आप लोग रैंक कीजिए अपने हिसाब से. आई थिंक द वोटिंग इज़ कम्प्लीटेड. सो फर्स्ट नंबर द ऑडियंस हैव सेड इज़ आफ्टर सेल सर्विस. दूसरे नंबर पे टेक्निकल, ओके. कम्युनिटी लेवल अवेयरनेस इज सेकंड. थर्ड इज़ टेक्निकल इश्यूज. फोर्थ इज़ इनअप्रोप्रिएट साइट सिलेक्शन. And fifth is pump selection. Okay, great. Thanks for that participation. So as I was telling, let us start with the key takeaways. Basically today mostly we will be talking about the failures in the system. Then one of the reasons for failures that we will be deep diving is basically on the water energy food nexus. Within that groundwater, we will try to deep dive into reason for understanding why understanding of groundwater is important, and after that we will try to understand this nexus through a system thinking lens. A small exercise that we have done with DESTA, और उसको लेते हुए how community has actually applied it in their real life, how community and practitioners have applied it in their real life. So that will be the broad contours of our discussion of this one and a half or 15 minutes. So just to set the context, as you can see, India and the Southeast Asia is one of the largest extractor of groundwater. As we zoom into India, I mean the dots, one particular dot is actually saying about 5,000 irrigation systems, electric, and white dots you can see, those are diesel electric systems. I mean this is basically taken from paper written by Professor Tusasa. When we look into the number of pumps, almost 33.08 million pumps are there, of which just 2.3 pumps, 2.3% is solar irrigation. But over the last, मतलब पिछले 10 साल के हिसाब से अगर देखेंगे, कुसुम स्कीम के चलते लगभग 5 लाख पंप्स डिप्लॉय हुए हैं, जो कि ऑलमोस्ट 43x टाइम डिप्लॉयमेंट है. इसमें सस्टेन प्लस जो हमारी संस्था है ये लगभग 3,400 पंप्स वेरियस कैटेगरीज में लगाई हुई है. कुछ सक्सेसेस शुरू करने के लिए आप लोग पढ़ सकते हैं, इसमें कुछ 2-3 चीज़ बताने का कोशिश करूँगा. एक जो वन ऑफ द इम्पॉर्टेंट इंडिकेटर्स जो हम लोगों ने देखा है, लगभग 80% के आसपास फार्मर्स जो है ये लो वैल्यू क्रॉप से हाई वैल्यू क्रॉप्स पे गए हुए हैं. आप वहाँ पे जो ग्राफ देख सकते हैं, लगभग 40% ऐसे ज़मीन है जहाँ पे कि पहली बार इरिगेशन हुआ है, और इंक्रीज़ इन इनकम, इंक्रीमेंटल इंक्रीज इन इनकम जो है ये लगभग 40,000 के आसपास है. सो दिस इज़ बेसिकली अ थर्ड पार्टी असेसमेंट डन ऑफ आवर वर्क. बट लुकिंग बियॉन्ड, आई मीन देयर आर लॉट्स ऑफ स्टोरीज दैट हैज़ टू बी अनरेवल्ड. 2 पिक्चर्स एक्चुअली इस स्टोरी को बयां करती है. राइट साइड में जो पिक्चर है ये बेसिकली हम लोग दर्शाने का ये कोशिश कर रहे हैं किस तरीके से एलीट कैप्चर होती है. ये एक गांव का तस्वीर है, आदिवासी गांव का तस्वीर है, जहाँ पे कि एक ही परिवार को 3 अलग अलग स्कीम से सोलर पंप्स मिले हुए हैं, जबकि उस गांव में और किसी को पंप्स नहीं मिले थे। और दूसरा आप लोग देख सकते हैं, द पैनल्स गॉट स्टोलन, दैट वाज आफ्टर द फर्स्ट इरिगेशन इन झारखंड। व्हाई दिस हैपेंस? वेल, बिफोर गोइंग इनटू इट, जो हमारी कल से जो हम लोग सुन रहे हैं, there are 3 major actors: समाज, सरकार and बाजार, and these are the 3 actors whose work in tandem either makes the thing successful or there are failures. So I mean, यहाँ पे हम लोग actors का roles को समझने का कोशिश कर रहे हैं। PM-KUSUM है जो कि सबसे बड़ी स्कीम है। स्कीम इंटीग्रेशन का बात करते हैं, मोस्टली पर ड्रॉप मोर क्रॉप स्कीम का, जिसमें सोलर इरिगेशन के बारे में हम लोग बात करते हैं। मार्केट का बात करेंगे तो लगभग 200 प्लस टेक्नोलॉजी सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स है, 50 मैन्युफैक्चरर है। इनका रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बियॉन्ड डिप्लॉयमेंट पोस्ट सेल सर्विस का रहता है, एज वेल एज टू ट्रिगर इनफ टू क्रिएट फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस इंटरेस्ट टू आई मूव द मार्केट। अगर सोसाइटी के तरफ देखेंगे तो देयर आर लार्ज नंबर ऑफ FPOs, सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस। इनका मुख्यतः जिम्मेदारी रहता है किस तरीके से इन एसेट्स को लेते हुए, सस्टेन करते हुए हम लोग इनकम बढ़ा सके कम्युनिटीज़ का। स्कीम्स पे अगर हम लोग अभी थोड़ा घुसने का कोशिश करेंगे, चैलेंजेस जो हम लोग को दिखती है, ये एक्चुअली दिस इज बेसिकली ए डेटा फ्रॉम द सोर्स इज बीन मेंशन्ड। सो फार्मर प्रोफाइल, आई मीन मोस्टली जो दिख रही है कि 4.7 एकर्स या उसके ऊपर है, विच इज़ स्लाइटली हायर देन द मार्जिनल फार्मर का जो डेफिनेशन है। इम्प्लीमेंटेशन टाइमलाइन थोड़ी ज़्यादा रहती है स्कीम्स में। चिपर अल्टरनेटिव्स है जहाँ पे इलेक्ट्रिसिटी अवेलेबल है। आफ्टर सेल सर्विस यूजुअली टर्न अराउंड टाइम काफ़ी ज़्यादा रहता है, ये हम लोग अपने स्कीम्स में भी देखें, उसको हम लोग बताएंगे। कम्युनिटी कंट्रीब्यूशन अगर नॉन ट्राइबल एरिया है तो ये लगभग 40% के आसपास रहती है, जो कि कम्युनिटीज़ को आई मीन एज एन अपफ्रंट कंट्रीब्यूशन इट बिकम्स क्वाइट डिफिकल्ट। एंड स्कीम कन्वर्जेंस, जो कि हम लोग राइट हैंड साइड में जो ग्राफ देख रहे हैं, दिस इज बेसिकली फ्रॉम ए पॉलिसी पेपर विच शोज दैट द स्टेट्स विच हैज़ हाइएस्ट नंबर ऑफ सोलर इरिगेशन पंप्स हैज़ द लोएस्ट नंबर ऑफ PDMC स्कीम एंड वाइस वर्सा। प्लस एट द सेम टाइम फार्मर लेवल पे इंटीग्रेशन एक्चुअली इज ऑलमोस्ट वेरी क्लोज टू नील, एज ए रिजल्ट ऑफ विच जहाँ पे सोलर इरिगेशन लगती हैं PM-KUSUM की, पीपल मोस्टली गो विथ फ्लेक्सी पाइप्स एंड इट हैज़ इट्स ओन एसोसिएटेड इशूज़। मूविंग ऑन, जो इसके पहले मैंने आप लोगों को बताया 40% का कंट्रीब्यूशन कम्युनिटी का रहता है, देन इट बिकम्स अ बिग अपॉर्चुनिटी फॉर द फाइनेंशियल सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स। बट स्टिल फाइनेंशियल सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स आर रियली नॉट इंटरेस्टेड टू टेक अप this into their product portfolio. Few reasons that we have seen based on our work, I mean, we have mentioned over here. Product cost is for them is usually less than 50%, less than 50,000. Typically ये MFIs के product cost का बोल रहे हैं, because these are the guys who goes to the last mile beyond what banks services. This product doesn't give immediate return. For them, productive loans are those loans which starts earning income from day one. This doesn't categorize as for them as productive loan, and hence there is a risk of extending EMIs, which is actually 18 to 24 months. But because this will get income from in every season, hence there's a risk of extending EMIs beyond 24 months. Poor after sale service, this is one of the biggest roadblock. And risk of lending to groups, because though the FI says that there are JLG models, but I mean they are more interested to give to individuals than to groups. Now if we further zero down into issues of non-functionality of system, this is completely our experience. What we have seen is issues of non-functionality varies from place to place, from 1% to 20%. Why it has been? I mean, you have shown in the Mentimeter, but our experience shows something more or less, I think, the same. 40% basically talks about the issues of non-functionality is because of low groundwater and pumps not functioning. Almost 35% actually is VFDs or the controllers getting damaged and associated issues, and 25% is the issues of theft. Now, if we go into the cause of why there is inappropriate pump selections, I mean, this most of the technical people know kya hai, but still we want to highlight. One is lack of proper head loss calculation. Typically, most of the technology service providers do head loss calculation at the highest point, which is actually quite inappropriate. So this actually leads to the tail end farmer getting the least amount of water. Water demand and discharge calculation usually thumb rule पे ही चलता है. 18,000 liter per acre is a thumb rule that typically is applied, which many a case when the aspiration of the farmers increases, this creates a crisis situation. All this leads to oversizing or undersizing of pump, mostly oversizing of pump, and which is actually again a stress on the farmers, giving additional cost. और एक पॉइंट जो हम लोग हाईलाइट करना चाह रहे हैं, जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द ग्राउंड वाटर एंड मोस्टली द अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द रिचार्ज इन द रीजन. इसका लैक ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग होने के चलते मेनी टाइम्स बिकॉज ऑफ ओवर एक्सट्रैक्शन अल्टीमेटली द नेक्स्ट क्रॉपिंग साइकिल गेट्स, नेक्स्ट इरिगेशन गेट्स हैम्पर्ड. All these things actually what we have understood is because of dependency mostly on technology service provider, no cross tabulation by the civil society organization or the agency who is front ending the technology service provider. Now this is one graph we wanted to say, because of which our data shows that based on the plant command area, even in Kharif, though it is critical irrigation, only the irrigation is used only during critical irrigation time. 90% एरिया में ही irrigation होती है of the plant command area. रबी में 80% होती है और समर में 42% तक घट जाता है of the plant command area of summer. This is some issues related to VFD. इसमें बहुत डिटेल में मैं नहीं जा रहा हूँ, but mostly अगर देखेंगे 2-3 है. एक है बेसिक हैंडलिंग ऑफ द VFD बाय द कम्युनिटी. इसका यूजुअली ट्रेनिंग नहीं रहती है, या फिर देर इज चेंज ऑफ द person who is handling, जिसके चलते there is an issue in VFD getting damaged. Other is the synchronization or compatibility issue of motor and the VFD, जिसके चलते mismatch होती है frequency की, and there is VFD is getting damaged. All these things we should expect that there is a good turnaround time of the repair, but our data suggests something different. X axis में हम लोगों ने रखा है जो कितने साल में, age of the DRE, of the solar pump, and the number of days it has taken for getting repaired. Surprisingly, during the AMC time, जबकि maintenance contract होती है, उस समय में दिन काफ़ी ज़्यादा है, 37 days. रिड्यूस करता है, लेकिन स्टिल 4th ईयर तक ये 22 डेज तक रहता है, विच इज़ ह्यूज इफ़ वी जस्ट रिलेट इट with when the crops are in the field. This so this is one point. Then this is though it looks simple, but what we have seen, our calculation says that if a farmer irrigates around 0.30 acres of land in first year, earning income, this actually really triggers their motivation to move forward. This is mostly with in the tribal ecosystem. Another data that we have seen is in the FPOs where the turnover, the output turnover is more than 1 crore, and in their catchment area there are around 100 pumps. There is non-functionality issues are limited to 5%, whereas if the turnover is less than 1 crore, the non-functionality is double digit. So this has a direct link with the production in that particular region. If there is production, there is skin in the game, and the FPOs or the people automatically push the vendors for repair and maintenance. Another point which typically remains hidden is the organizational capacity to invest on running the system for at least 2-3 years. We have just kept 2 examples of Odisha, which is a very active production cluster where there is a heavy footfall of the professionals on the field, at least 12 times during a season, either for the package of practice stabilization, etc. Over there what we have seen is status of non-functionality is quite low, as compared to places like Bundelkhand, where the footfall of the professionals to handhold the community is quite low. Ownership of asset is another thing that we wanted to highlight. Typically in the civil society ecosystem, we tend to work with user groups, be it in any typologies, and the graph also says so. User group banao and then the pump will sustain on itself. But the data actually doesn't say so. I mean data in the bottom actually shows the average amount that is collected by the farmers, which actually reduces by the fourth year, and so is the frequency of meeting. And this we have seen in many of the cases. If there is no support being given to the farmers, gradually the group fizzles out and the ownership remains with the people on whose land the asset is there. This is a graph taken from IMI's benchmarking study. Typically, what we have seen is in the hard rock aquifers of Jharkhand, the days of irrigation is 50 days in a year, and in the Gangetic plains it is 100 to 120 days. Few reasons for it. I mean, one reason is again definitely it has to do with the cropping cycle, the number of days the pump is used. And another point that we wanted to highlight is, I mean, such a huge investment and the number of days which I mean the pumps remains underutilized or not utilized. So yeah, so thanks. I mean, this is just to give you a context of the failures in the irrigation ecosystem. But now, in order to understand or try in order to deep dive a bit more, मैं अनुरोध करूँगा दिनेश भाई को. दिनेश भाई जो दाहोद से आए हैं, वो आके अपने बारे में बताएं दिनेश भाई, और आपका क्या अनुभव है उसको साझा करें.
सभी को नमस्कार. મારું નામ દિનેશભાઈ સંગાડા છે અને મારું ગામનું નામ પટવાણ છે, તાલુકો લીમખેડા છે, જિલ્લો દાહોદ, ગુજરાત રાજ્ય છે. હું દાહોદ જિલ્લાની વાત કરું તો દાહોદ જિલ્લો એક આદિવાસી જિલ્લો છે અને ખૂબ પછાત જિલ્લો છે, જેમાં 50% લોકો માઇગ્રેશન કરે છે. અને જમીનની વાત કરીએ તો 1 થી 1.5 એકર જમીન છે ખેડૂતો પાસે, જેમનો મુખ્ય પાક મકાઈ જ છે. અને ખેતી એ લોકો ડીઝલ પંપથી જ કરે છે. ડીઝલ પંપ પછી ઇલેક્ટ્રિક પંપથી ચાલુ કર્યું. પછી એના પછી અમે કુસુમ યોજનામાં સોલાર પંપ લગાવ્યા છે.
तो दिनेश भाई क्विकली, क्योंकि भोजन को गुजराती नहीं आती है, तो Dinesh bhai is from this region, Dahod in Gujarat, which is a tribal dominated area, undulating region. Average land holding is 1.5 to 2 acres. Maize is majorly cultivated in that region.
અત્યાર સુધી જે અમે 5 વર્ષની અંદર 700 સોલર લગાવ્યા છે. હવે એની અંદર અમને જે મુશ્કેલીઓ દેખાય છે એ આપને જણાવવા માંગુ છું કે કઈ કઈ મુશ્કેલીઓ આવે છે. જેમાં 30% મુશ્કેલીઓ આવે છે એ જે પહેલી મુશ્કેલી છે ટેકનિકલ પ્રોબ્લેમ. ટેકનિકલ પ્રોબ્લેમમાં મોટર પંપ છે, કેબલ છે, કંટ્રોલર છે, એ બગડી ગયા પછી એને સર્વિસ કરવા માટે તૈયારીમાં કોઈ લોકલ કારીગર મળતા નથી. બીજો પ્રોબ્લેમ છે કે ખેડૂત અને એજન્સી, જ્યારે ખેડૂતનું કોઈ બી કમ્પ્લેન આલવાની થાય ત્યારે ખેડૂતને જ્યારે કમ્પ્લેન નોંધાવવા માટે કંપનીમાં ફોન કરવો પડે છે, ત્યારે લોકલ પ્રોબ્લેમ હોય ને સામે કંપનીવાળાએ ઇંગ્લિશમાં યા હિન્દીમાં વાત કરતા હોય, ત્યારે ખબર પડતી નથી ને વ્યવસ્થિત કમ્પ્લેન નોંધાતી નથી, ત્યારે પણ તકલીફ પડે છે. ત્રીજી મુશ્કેલી છે જે કે સમસ્યા, જે સમુદાયની સમસ્યા છે. જ્યારે એ લોકો કોઈ પણ જાતનું ભંડોળ ભેગું કરતા નથી, સેવિંગ કરતા નથી, જ્યારે આકસ્મિક ખર્ચો આવી જાય તેને પહોંચવા માટે પૈસા પણ રહેતા નથી. એવી રીતે બીજો ચોથો પોઈન્ટ છે કે જ્યારે અત્યારે પણ અમે નવા પંપ લેવા માટે પણ અરજી કરી છે તો હજુ 6 મહિના થઈ ગયા તો એ હજુ અમે એનું યાદી પણ બહાર પડેલી નથી. તો પંપ લેવામાં 6 મહિના થઈ ગયા એટલે એક સિઝન પણ નીકળી ગઈ, બીજી સિઝન શરૂ થઈ ગઈ તો હજુ પંપ મળ્યા પણ નથી. આ પણ એક તકલીફ જ છે.
So basically Dinesh bhai said few things. He said that there are around close to 700 pumps that are been deployed both by KUSUM and private schemes.
जी.
दोनों था ना. The problems that he is facing, he is telling the problems are technical, mostly controller related, and turnaround time is high. One of the reason that he is telling is that there is a difference in communication gap between the technology service provider and the community. That also increases the turnaround time. Related to community, he said that though grouped, but savings is erratic or not done. And he mentioned about a pump which was supposed to be procured. It took 6 months. 6 महीना से क्या लगा
हाँ,
बोले?
अर्जी करते सब 6 महीना हो गया, अभी तक भी पंप मिला नहीं.
खराब था.
नया नया एक.
अच्छा नया पंप.
हाँ, नया पंप.
ठीक है.
हाँ.
Okay. PM KUSUM का.
हाँ, PM-KUSUM.
Okay, so I mean the turnaround time of PM KUSUM pump, he is given an example. I mean for deployment is 6 months. I mean till 6 months it hasn't got deployed.
પછી અમને બધા 700 પંપ તો લગાવી દીધા. પછી પાણીની વાત કરીએ તો પાણી પર અમે સર્વે કર્યું. પાણી પર સર્વે કર્યું તો ઘણી જગ્યાએ ઘણા ગામોમાં એવું થયું કે બોર સુકાઈ ગયા, કૂવા પણ સુકાઈ ગયા છે. એક ઘરમાં બે બોર અને કૂવા લાગેલા છે. તો મેં 70-80 જગ્યાએ કર્યું પણ પછી આખા ગામમાં જ ખબર પડી કે અહીંયા તો 600 થી 700 બોર લાગેલા છે. હવે પીવાના પાણી માટે પણ મુશ્કેલી સર્જાઈ ગઈ છે. તો આને રોકવા માટે અમારે કંઈક તો કરવું જોઈએ. તો અમે આ સર્વે કર્યું અને સર્વે કર્યા પછી ખબર પડી કે અહીંયા પાણી બચાવવા માટે અમારે ખેડૂતો જોડે વાત કરી અને નવી ડિઝાઇનથી અમે પંપ બનાવી શકીએ.
तो आप बोल रहे हैं ये सोलर पंप से पानी चुका है, वो बोल रहे हैं.
हाँ, पानी पण सोलर.
So I mean he is giving an example of a village which has around 600 to 700 bore wells and dug wells, and this actually I mean there has been over extraction of groundwater, because of which even there are drinking water crisis also felt in the village. Now he is going to solutions, but that's another question for him, so we will park it for later.
થેન્ક યુ.
ગામનું નાટક શું છે?
ધાબડા.
ધાબડા.
વીજળી તો છે પણ અત્યારે સોલર પંપ વધારે લાગેલી છે. પાણી સોલર.
ठीक है, थैंक यू. क्विकली थैंक यू. अब बैठिए. एक प्रैक्टिशनर्स का एक्सपीरियंस सुन लेते हैं. आई मीन दिस वी हैव हर्ड फ्रॉम गुजरात. Maybe I'll request Prasanjit to share about his experience from Odisha. Odisha is unique because over there अभी तक ground water over extraction नहीं हुआ है, and the second thing is he has lots of experience of sub HP pumps. So maybe Prasanjit.
Yeah, thank you, Avinda. The problem is quite similar that you shared and Dinesh shared. Let me share first the context of Odisha. The Odisha is a rich state in terms of natural resource. The rainfall is around 1200 mm to 1700 mm. Groundwater depth varies 200 feet to 1200 feet. We have been working on solar energy for irrigation purpose for last 8 years. The intensity increases for last 4-5 years. More than 3,500 farmers are accessing irrigation through these solar pumps, and we are working on both group-based big solar pump and small sub-HP pump for individual farmers. So we have been facing lots of challenges during this journey actually. I have tried to categorize those problems in 4 different parts. The first I'm coming the issues related to community. Actually, in group-based systems, operator is required to run the system. And the problem is all the operators are not paid regularly by the participant farmers. We have tried to introduce many systems for to ensure this payment. We tried to introduce system like area-based, irrigation-based payment system, crop-based payment system, season-based payment system. But the result is not good. This is the success rate is good with the community like Santal Munda, but with other community this is quite difficult. So because of this reason, the operator change is a very common incident. And this is leading to a new problem, like this is creating a knowledge gap. It's for an operator, it needs some basic knowledge to run this pump. Like there are some do's and don'ts, like when to start that VFD, after starting the VFD, when to start that pump. So there are some do's and don'ts. But when the operator change frequently, the new onboarding of the operator is not happening on the proper way. And this leading to pump failure again. So that is what we are facing right now. And another problem on the rightly said about portable pump. Portable pump is for individual farmer, but the problem is the portable pump has 2 panels, solar panels. This is not very easy to carry both the solar panels, especially for the women farmers. So I think we need to work on the portable mechanism, how a farmer can carry those panels to their fields. And repairing issue already shared by Ayanda. I just want to highlight few things. Like right now we have a contract with all the vendors that they will provide 5 years maintenance cost. They are based away from the locations, so it is very difficult for them to provide service on immediate basis. If as Odisha is a cyclone prone area, so thunderstorm is very common. And if there is a VFD problem, so to change that VFD we need 25 to 30 days. And if it is about pump, so farmer need to send the pump to the manufacturer company, and then it's take a long time. But the problem is during this period there is no alternative mechanism to irrigate their standing crop. And for that reason, they are losing huge amount of money, ranging from 30,000 to 50,000. This depending on crop stage. And the issue regarding finance, what Arunda said, what we understand about the period, the slow rate of adoptions of solar pump. One of the main reason is the amount of investment required at the initial stage. And right now, we have access to credit for purchasing mobile, but not for the solar pump. So we need to work on this seriously. And there are some issues regarding technical viability and the availability of vendors. Like a big issue is, I'm talking about the portable pump. This portable pump is good for flood irrigations. It can irrigate up to 1 acre. But all we are talking about efficient use of water. So when we talk about efficient use of water, the drip irrigation is the easiest way to use it in a proper manner. But the portable pump is not capable for drip irrigation. One farmer can irrigate up to 20 decibel of land with this portable pump. If one farmer want to go for 50 decibel of drip installations, so he has no option, because the portable pump is not capable, and the higher HP pump is not suitable as the cost is huge for them. So for an individual farmer, if he or she want to do drip irrigation in 50 decimal of land, they have no options right now. So this is all about my sharing. And one more thing, this is last one. Yeah, we need more market player in this ecosystem, because right now what the vendor we have for particularly portable solar pump, there are very limited vendor. We have very less option for alternative, and we are not able to bargain with them regarding the pump. So we need more market player. Yeah. So here the context is, there are some managerial issue if we go with this big solar pump at the community level. But if we go with the small solar pump, then we need the technology upgradations if we want to go with this drip. So this is the situation right now. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prasenjit. So, I mean, maybe one quick question from the audience. Yes, Shil.
I actually had a question about something you showed on the slide, which I found very interesting. The Deloitte survey that you showed seemed to suggest that the return is about 40,000 from a solar pump.
Yeah.
Is that in the first year itself?
So this was an impact assessment.
Yeah.
So third year, maybe around third year of deployment.
So
of the
it's 40,000 over 3 years?
one
year.
1 year.
Right? But the ticket size later you showed is less than 50,000, which means that the payback period is less than a year, which should make it very attractive for any financer. But that's not the case. So there is something that we are missing here.
Yeah. So 40% is the contribution that farmer has to give for taking a pump, which is around 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakhs, and based on the size of the pump. But you are saying, I mean, can
In a later slide, you showed that the ticket size is less than 50,000 rupees.
yeah. That's for the loan.
Loan,
Yeah.
right? But
So
right, but the loan also, we are hearing that it's difficult to get a loan. It's easier to get a loan for a mobile pump than for a solar pump. But if the ticket size is only 50,000 rupees and the first year return is 40,000 rupees, then it's a very attractive loan product, right?
Yes, yes.
Then why are farmers struggling to get a loan?
I mean, it is basically because financiers don't get interested in making solar pump as part of their product portfolio. I mean, the reasons that I mentioned is the ticket size is typically is less than 50,000. The asset cost should be less than 50,000. So even after subsidizing a solar pump, the cost still remains around 1 or more than 1 lakh. So
Okay.
that is one reason. Even if there is a subsidy to that, I mean, the other bigger, what barrier is, they consider, I mean, the financiers consider those product as productive asset, which gets income from the day one. Say, for example, a solar freezer. I mean, if you are putting medicine in that, you are earning from the day one. I mean, if it is in a shop. But solar irrigation actually gives income in one season. So that's why the EMI for them gets extended. And these are the two major reasons because of which they are not interested. Besides the turnaround time for the serviceability, which actually the experience that we are saying is around 22 to 30 days. As a result of which, again, they are not very keen to take it as a product.
So now that you've done more than 3,000 pumps, do you think there is role for a civil society entity to say, I can host a revolving fund, which can get a loan easily, right? Because of the reputation of the organization, and then use that to give easy loans, and given
Yes.
that civil society will also have better
Yes.
repayment. Right?
Yes, that's very much possible. I mean, this sort of models we are doing for various products. Some examples like EMI subventions we are doing, that is creating interest. But ultimately the thing is, this is not getting mainstreamed. It is still remaining in the realms of civil society. So the struggle is how it can be mainstreamed with the financial service provider. So
Thanks.
thanks. Last question. Huh?
No, it's not a question. Answer what Shilp was asking, right? In addition to the points that you said, based on our conversation with some of the finances, one of the major reason is that they are not able to standardize a product. So, for example, for a motorbike, it's a bike, right? It's a movable asset. They can pick. Uh, Still, yeah, but still they can give a motor vehicle loan, right? But for here, what's happening is there. So this is the questions that these people are asking. That how do we standardize a solar pump, basically? Yeah, that's still that's what. So yeah, one of the problems that they are asking still is that how do we say that, okay, if we give loans, let's say for a particular district in this place, can we say that, okay, 5 HP ka pump for this much head, can we standardize this, and can we say that, okay, people will need 2 lakhs loan? And this is not a very old conversation. It's about a year ago which
Okay.
we had.
Okay. Thanks. We will maybe take some more questions afterwards because there are some more presentations to be made. And please, we can take it afterwards, maybe after 2 more presentations. Thank you. I just want to draw your attention to this particular slide. According to our survey based on the non-functionality of the asset, many of the non-functionality of the system is because of low level of groundwater and hence the associated problem. So let us try to unpack unpack groundwater in this entire nexus, and for that I'll invite Neha from ACWADAM to give a presentation and give a deep dive on this in this entire nexus and mostly focusing on groundwater. Neha.
Thank you so much, Ayan. Hello and good afternoon to everyone. Just like Ayan mentioned, I'm from an organization known as ACWADAM, which is based in Pune. In this particular presentation, I'm actually going to try and put down reasons to some of the problems that were highlighted by Ayan as well as Dinesh Bhai, but from a groundwater perspective. Thank you for running the slides, Ayan. So, like Ayan mentioned, that India is the largest groundwater abstractor country in the entire world. Now, when I say that, I'm saying, whether it is drinking water for the rural populations, whether it's irrigation, whether it is industries, or very, very coal towns, or all the towns or urban centers in India. All of these are dependent primarily on groundwater resources. Now, if you look at the numbers, we're looking at 98% of rural drinking water, 60 to 70% for irrigation, 48% in urban, and industries still very mixed, but we believe it's equally a high number. Now, what the significance of this is probably coming in the next slides. But I would like to, through this graphic, try to show you that India as a country is very, very diverse as far as the groundwater resources are concerned. There's region A, region B, region C. So region A is basically a region where the groundwater resources are very, very less developed. There are very good base flows, very, very few wells. So that's region A for you. Region B is again a healthy system where you have seasonal base flows, good amount of groundwater development, good recharge that is happening in the system. And a region C which is exploited, okay? The withdrawal of groundwater is far more than the recharge that is happening to these systems. So the reason behind showing you this graphic is to say that, if a solar-based irrigation program is being deployed or rolled out in region A versus region B versus region C, your matrix of failure, success is going to be very, very different because your inherent availability of the stock underneath your land, underneath your village is very, very different. So understanding the condition of the aquifer where the solar irrigation programs are being deployed is very, very important. Coming to my second point is understanding the energy groundwater relationship from a discharge head and energy perspective. Now, I'm just going to show you through a graphic, a very, very basic graphic that because in this case we're talking about solar pumps for irrigation. If you're looking at a farmer with an acre of land with A type of crop, and we ask him that if you need to irrigate that A type of crop, what is the amount of water that you desire from the pump, right? So first question is, what is the discharge that is required, okay? Then once that is decided, we go to the farmer, see if he has a well, his or her well. What is the head over which that water actually needs to be lifted up? And both of these together decide, therefore, what is the horsepower or the pump capacity that is to be fitted. So that is how generally the horsepower is decided. Seldom is there importance given to the aquifer underneath or the aquifer that is really feeding that well, because we need to understand that an aquifer is not like an infinite source. It has finite boundaries. It is governed by certain storage and transmission capacities. So it has its own limitations which cannot be changed. The third point is this graph is actually from a program that we had done in partnership with Sustain Plus. Very quickly, I'll try to explain this graph to you. It might seem very, very complicated, but there were basically two wells where one of the pumps was run on grid electricity, and the other which was through the solar pumps that were deployed by Sustain Plus. And what we tried to see is, what was the discharge per unit of energy that we were getting from both of these wells. And what we see is per unit of energy that was used, the solar was giving me, even though it is variable, if you look at the average, it's giving me, say, 500 LPM of water per unit of energy use against a grid which is, say a maximum of 200 liters per minute. So the per unit of energy used, the discharge from the solar system was far more higher than what we were getting from a grid. Again, stating the point here that although solar is considered as a clean, green, renewable source of energy, it does not necessarily imply that your groundwater is going to get conserved. Okay. Again, reiterating that India as a country is very diverse as far as the aquifers are concerned, and that every aquifer is going to behave or is going to respond to the same energy, to the same horsepower in very different ways. So this is just indicative graph showing you. I'm just going to give you an example of these two lines here, which are showing you how that particular aquifer will behave to a fixed discharge head and discharge. So if you look at the green, you see that for the same amount of pumping time, you get a drop in the well of say 6 meters, whereas another well in a very different aquifer is probably for the same time is giving you a much steeper drop in water level and probably eventually leading to drying up of the well, which is not happening in the case of the green well. Similarly, after the pump has stopped, so once the pumping phase is over, each of these wells is also going to recover or come back to its original state in a very, very different manner. Some of them probably will not come back to the original water levels as they were when you had started the pump. Again, saying that the storage and transmission capacities of these wells is very, very different from the storage and transmission capacity of these wells. So sometimes a farmer who had 14 meters of water column at the start of the pumping probably does not have that much of water column at the end of the first pumping phase. Okay, that's the first point. The second point is, for it to really recover, sometimes the farmer might have to wait for even 5 days, 7 days for him or her to pump for another 8 hours or 10 hours. Okay. Okay, in this graphic, I just want to try and bring out a very, very big failure, I can say, as far as the programmatic level is concerned, is we fail to understand that groundwater is a common pool resource, which means that your irrigation well in a village, your irrigation well, and most often your drinking water well is also in the same aquifer. So over abstraction of your irrigation in that village is going to have a direct impact on the volume of water that is going to be available for drinking water at the end of the year. Okay, and this is based on some of our work that we've done across the country, where we do a groundwater balance. This is something which we do in most of the villages that we work in. Is that when we look at the overall water balance of any village, and we try and see how or where the water is really going, we see that a large fraction of the water goes into rabi irrigation. And if you look at it whole, it's the rabi followed by summer irrigation. Very, very small percentage of the water balance is actually the domestic water demand. And some might say 2 millimeters is too less, but okay, even if I put it to 10 millimeters, it's far, far less as compared to this millimeters of water that we are really looking at. So, when irrigation programs are being deployed, more often than not, we forget that there is a drinking water source there which could get hampered. Vice versa, if you're working from a drinking water supply program, and if you want that program to be successful, you also need to try and understand what the cropping pattern of that entire region is, because it's going to directly impact the availability and the quality of groundwater that is going to be available. So therefore, in this, again, going back to the program that we did with Sustain Plus, is we tried to develop a conceptual idea of the groundwater, energy, and food nexus. And again, an example here that we're looking at two regions with the same crop A. I've not put in a name here. So two regions with the same crop, similar productivities, but the efficiency of this nexus is going to be very, very different, primarily because of the source of water for that crop. So in this case, you have less input of energy because it's coming from a shallower source against a much higher energy input coming from a much deeper source with a much lower storage capacity. Just to put in numbers here, this might be a little complicated. I won't go into the numbers. We can obviously discuss this, during the question and answers. But the same nexus that I showed you in the previous slide, we've put in numbers here. This is based on the actual data set that we've taken from the villages. And we've considered the crop wheat here because it was the most common in the two sites that we were looking at. One was in Dahod, which Dinesh Bhai spoke about, and Udaipur. What we see is, if you look at the nexus or the equation that we showed, we see that in Dahod we're looking at 3.8 grams per hectare which is produced by consuming the same 1 cubic meter of groundwater produced through 1 unit of energy used per unit of drawdown in the aquifer. Against that, in Udaipur you're getting 266 grams per hectare. We have not added the economics into this, so you can have the market also that can come into here. Okay, so this is my last slide where I'm trying to say that can we look at it beyond crop per drop? Can we look at the resource, energy, and agriculture in a completely different way? Can we look at an index where we are looking at crop per drop, but because your drop of water is coming from underneath the land, which requires certain amount of energy to be put in, therefore have a new or a separate nexus or a separate equation to look at this. So that's about my presentation here. Thank you so much, everyone.
There may be other sources of that. One is the characteristic of the aquifer itself. By storing like a pump that is bigger or that is extracting more than the aquifer is producing, you may end up with bad results. Whereas if the solar is well designed, according to how the recharge and discharge is taken, you get better results. What I can add on is that you need to see other causes that may have been behind that. Thank you.
Right. So thanks for those quick comments. I know there will be lots of questions in this particular session, but moving forward, I mean, what we did was basically with this study done by ACWADAM, we tried to understand this whole nexus that Neha was mentioning at last, which has this food and water and energy. So we tried to understand this whole thing through a systems thinking lens. And by that, in that actually Mihir, who is currently online with us, he tried to basically demystify this particular nexus, and we were able to develop protocols out of it for both practitioners as well as for the community to understand. So my request is now to Mihir, maybe if you can quickly share that experience of yours, and then after that, what we'll do is we'll quickly take the narrations from the community, how they have used, the examples from this nexus. So over to you, Mir.
Thank you, Ayan. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, so I'm joining online. I'm going to share my screen and start the presentation. Ayan, you let me know if the screen is coming through. All good?
Yeah, Mir.
All right. So we worked with Sustain Plus AquaDam to develop groundwater protocols along with communities. As people have been saying, we have to look at interconnections in a system, which we also called as nexus. So the conventional approach focuses on studying parts of a whole. For example, people would look at livestock, groundwater, agriculture, but they would look at those separately and then add those parts up. But in systems thinking, we say you have to also study the interaction of the parts. So how livestock, groundwater, agriculture, pumping, all are interconnected with each other and how they're impacting each other, which is producing dynamics of change over time. So through systems thinking, we started capturing these interconnections between the pumping, groundwater, agriculture, and livestock. How we did this was through a participatory systems thinking exercise that we did with AquaDam and Sustain Plus. The objective of the whole process was to build a model which can evaluate different groundwater management protocols. Use that model to run a live simulation workshop with the community to develop protocols, and then testing and evaluating protocols with the community. The model components, we have agriculture, kharif, rabi, and summer crops, livestock and domestic water consumption, and groundwater, confined and unconfined aquifers. We conducted this exercise and we developed the model for two aquifers, one in Rajasthan and second in Gujarat. This was the group modeling workshop that we did with the whole team, which helped us to develop the systems thinking diagrams and model components of different aquifer systems and how it interacts with the agriculture system, what kind of dynamics people have observed on ground, all the measurements that Neha was showing you of groundwater, and all the experiences and data that we had from Sustain Plus. We used all that to understand how the model could be created. And then we created a simulation model, system dynamics model, which had groundwater, both confined and unconfined aquifer, and the agriculture system, livestock system, and domestic consumption. We took the model and we went to the village called Hainla. And in Hainla, we put up a projector in the school room and started showing the model runs and model results for next 5 years and then next 10 years to the community. And then we asked the community what would they do differently in order to conserve groundwater. And through that, we tested each of their intervention through the model and generated scenarios. The second exercise we did was in Thavda in Gujarat, and we have representatives from the community who were also part of this process. As we did this exercise, especially in Dhabda, we got a list of 5 to 6 interventions that the community said they would like to do in order to conserve the groundwater. So I will show you the model runs and also what the community said. So the first intervention that the community mentioned was They would like to increase the recharge by 10% through watershed development and revival of some of the recharging the some of the aquifers. Now we use that and input it. So this is the model interface, the simulation model interface. It shows water in confined aquifer, water in unconfined aquifer, both. So when I click run, the model will simulate over time for 60 months, which is 5 years. If you see, both the aquifers are depleting over time, right? Both the aquifers are depleting over time. And this is not what any one of us desires. This is not the expected future scenario. This is not what we want. So we asked the community, what would you do? So the first run is business as usual. And then we asked the community, what would they do differently? They said they would like to increase the recharge by 10% through watershed development and revival mechanisms. So here there is a lever called unconfined recharge percentage. So I would increase this from 28 to 30%, which is basically a 10% increase. And I will also increase the recharge rate of confined aquifer. Now I have increased both and I will rerun the model. Now when I rerun the model, you see the difference it is creating. You see the red line and the blue line, right? The blue line is business as usual and the red line is the difference that it produces. You'll see that the difference in the water in unconfined aquifer is much more than confined aquifer because of the difference in the recharge rates. So that was the first thing the community said. Now, after looking at these runs, of course, we are not satisfied, and they were also not satisfied. The confined aquifer was still getting depleted. So we asked them to raise their aspirations, raise their intervention. What else would you do? So they said we would further increase the confined aquifer recharge by 10% by doing focused recharge of dry bore wells, right? By doing a focused recharge of dry bore wells. So we said, okay, fine. Confined aquifer, we will further increase this by 10%, which means 3 more percentages. So I make it 33% recharge. And then I reran the model. Now you see the confined aquifer water has increased little more than what it was before. So every intervention is helping us conserve or increase the stock of water incrementally. Now again, this is also not sufficient. So we have already done 2 interventions, but the confined aquifer water is still getting depleted substantially. So we asked the community, what else can you do potentially? Now we come to the demand side management. So far, the community told us supply side, right? How can we increase the supply of water? Now they talk about demand side management. So they said, potentially, if all people in the village agree, we could reduce our crop water requirement, especially in Rabi season, by 30% through use of efficient irrigation for all crops, except wheat and fodder, for which it is not feasible. So we said, fine, if the village people believe that 30% reduction in crop water requirement for Rabi is possible, we will put that in the model. So I go to the next page in the model and I go to the crop water requirement. So the model also, in the model, you can change the crop water requirement. So what are the community people saying? They're saying that we would reduce the crop water requirement in Rabi by 30%, except wheat and fodder. So now I would manually reduce the water requirement by 30% for each crop, except wheat and fodder. So this will become 500. Wheat will not change. Chili will become 350. Tomato will become 500. Cabbage will become 1200. Cauliflower 1000. Potato 660. Garlic, onion will become 350. Yeah. So we are done with all of them. Okay. So what were we not supposed to touch? Wheat and fodder. Yeah. So we are not done that. So Rabi season, we have changed the crop water requirement. Now we will rerun the model after this demand side management intervention has been done. Now we see some more changes. You see the green line now, a confined aquifer. Each run, the green line is going up and up, which means there is more water left than what it was before. So 36 months, 45th month, 49th month is now when the aquifer is completely dry, as compared to the BAU run where the aquifer was completely dry in the 25th month. So we have managed to conserve the groundwater for 25 more months, right? The unconfined aquifer is really doing well. We are able to not only conserve the groundwater but also increase the water availability. Then we challenged the community even more, saying, confined aquifer is getting depleted. What else would you do? And they said, fine, let's increase our aspirations. We would reduce the water usage from confined aquifer and we would shift to unconfined aquifer. So they said we could do this instead of using confined, which is getting depleted, we will shift our water usage to unconfined by 10%. So we said, okay, fine. So Rabi irrigation from confined, which is 60%, we will reduce this to 50% for Rabi. And summer, where the load is 90% on confined, we will reduce this to 80%. So what we have done, we have reduced the water consumption from confined by 10% for both Rabi and summer. Now we will rerun the model. This is really remarkable now. You see this? This is really remarkable. We are able to conserve the groundwater for all 5 years. So while we are depleting the unconfined aquifer a little more as compared to earlier, but we are able to conserve the confined aquifer. So this is how we developed the protocols with the community. And one last thing before I hand it over back to Ayan, we have to challenge the boundary conditions of people. So basically this model is running for 5 years. Then we did a 90-month simulation and we saw if the water is getting conserved, and we see some challenges now, right? The water tables are getting depleted. Then we ran the model for 10 years. And now we see that in the 100th month, the water tables do go dry, which is not the case in unconfined. So unconfined is doing well, but the confined water aquifer actually goes dry in the 90th month. Still, by doing all this implementing, if all these protocols are implemented, then we will be able to conserve the groundwater, at least the unconfined. And one last protocol they said was we will reduce the crop water requirement in summer season by 30%, except for cluster bean. Ayan, if we have time, then should I run this model or we are out of time?
I think maybe Mihir, thanks. I think we
Okay.
have got a sense of it.
Okay.
Many thanks for this. What
Yeah.
we will do is how community has adapted this protocols and how they are actually planning this whole thing in their own region. So for that we can ask Dinesh bhai to share. Yeah. So just quickly, maybe if you really want to understand this model more, yeah, there is a QR code. You can scan it, get the model downloaded, and then during the question answer time, more questions for that. So I'll hand over to Dinesh bhai. Dinesh bhai, अभी जैसे मिहिर भाई ने बताया, मिहिर, you can please show the QR code once more. या तो आप लोग किस तरीके से पानी को बचाने के लिए आप लोग किस तरीके से प्लान करते हैं उसको आप टुक में बताइएगा, है ना?
અમને અમે પાણી બચાવવા માટે સૌથી પહેલાં જે સોલર લાગેલા છે એમને ડ્રીપ ઇરિગેશન ને મલ્ચિંગ એ એક જ સ્કીમ પર 1 થી 1.5 એકરમાં લગાવ્યા છે. એનાથી ખેતીમાં પાણીનો વપરાશ ઓછો થાય અને જે ક્રોપ બાસ્કેટ જે આપ્યા છે એનાથી આવક પણ વધી જાય. એ માટે અમે પ્રયાસ કર્યો છે. અને જ્યારે નવા જે બીજા લોકો બગાડી રહ્યા છે પાણી, એમના માટે અમે ગ્રાઉન્ડ લેવલે ફાર્મર જોડે વર્કશોપ કરીને અમે એનું એનાલિસિસ કર્યું છે કે દરેક વ્યક્તિ ખેતીમાં કેટલું પાણી વાપરે છે, પશુપાલનમાં કેટલું પાણી વાપરે છે, ઘર વપરાશ માટે કેટલું પાણી વાપરે છે. ત્યારે અમને જાણવા મળ્યું કે એગ્રીકલ્ચરમાં 64% પાણી 64% एग्रीकल्चर में ही पानी जा रहा है, और लाइव स्टॉक में 12% जा रहा है, और डोमेस्टिक में 24% जा रहा है। तो हमने एग्रीकल्चर से कम करने के लिए नया मॉडल में हमने जो सोलर लगाए, तो पूरा डिजाइन करके वो 5-6 एकड़ में अंडरग्राउंड पाइपलाइन करके और 1 से 1.5 एकड़ में माइक्रो इरिगेशन और मल्चिंग लगा के हमने फार्मर को क्रॉप बास्केट दे दिया है। वो कम एरिया में ज़्यादा खेती कर सके और उसका इनकम भी बढ़ा सके, ऐसा हमने प्रयास किया है। थैंक यू। वो हमने इसमें वो भी देखा है कि जहाँ पानी है वहाँ हमने सोलर लगाने का प्लान किया है, वो जहाँ नहीं है वहाँ हमने वो भी प्रयास किया कि वहाँ चेक डैम लगाएंगे और रिचार्ज होगा, और फिर बाद में पंप लगाएंगे, तब अच्छी तरह से पानी मिल सके।
So what Dinesh bhai said is basically the concept of water budgeting. I mean, post this exercise, I mean, there was some thinking within the organization wherein they actually did water budgeting of the regions where they are supposed to plan for solar irrigation. In water budgeting, basically it was to sensitize the community on the percentage of water that is getting utilized, which is close to 64%. Then they actually identified the recharge and the discharge zone, mostly where the water can be conserved and from where the water can be extracted. So based on that, planning for conservation structures and planning for the solar irrigation in those sites, I mean, which are which actually suits the irrigation of the region. So that way he has planned. Plus for conservation, in every command area, on an average 2 acres of drip and mulch with buried pipeline is the standard norm with solar irrigation system. So that is something which his organization is doing across region. कितना गांव में ये किए हैं आप लोग?
हमने 40 गांव में किए हैं, और हमारे पास टोटल 700 सोलर है, इसमें 350 सोलर में ड्रिप और मल्चिंग लगाया है।
So this planning has been undertaken in 40 villages. That's what he says. Quickly, we will take a community testimony of, I mean, what are the changes that has happened after taking this planning and then actually installing solar irrigation. आप थोड़ा सा जल्दी से क्या परिवर्तन आया है वो बताएंगे? दादा थोड़ा बता दे टूक में 2 मिनट में।
आप સૌને મારા પ્રણામ। મારું નામ પટેલ જુવાનસિંહ છે। હું ગુજરાત से દાહોદ જિલ્લામાં એક માંડલી ગામ કે પૂરું ગામ 7 કિલોમીટરના એરિયાની અંદર છવાયેલું છે। ડુંગરાળ એરિયા છે। 7,000 જેટલી વસ્તી ગામની છે। ગામમાં 100% लोग खेती पर निर्भर है, खेती करते हैं। પહેલાં અમારે ત્યાં ડીઝલ પંપથી ખેતી કરવામાં આવતી હતી। ડીઝલ પંપની અંદર પણ ઘણી બધી સમસ્યાઓ આવતી હતી। દિન પ્રતિદિન ડીઝલનો ભાવ વધતો જતો હતો। ત્યાર પછી ગવર્મેન્ટ દ્વારા વીજ પંપ લગાવવામાં આવતા હતા, પણ એમાં એક પ્રશ્ન હતો કે અઠવાડિયું અમને દિવસે મળે અને અઠવાડિયું રાત્રે મળતું હતું, એટલે જંગલ એરિયા હોવાને પરિણામે અમે એ રાત્રે નથી વાળી શકતા, જેથી અમારી ખેતી ક્યારેક સુકાઈ જવાનો ભય રહેતો હતો। અને એમાં અમે ખેડૂતો એવું વિચારતા હતા કે કેવી રીતના શું કરીએ। ત્યારે અમારો PM-KUSUM યોજના, એમાં દિનેશભાઈ અમને મળ્યા, તો મેં પહેલી વાર નક્કી કર્યું કે મારે સોલર પંપ મારા ખેતરમાં લગાડવો છે। તો દિનેશભાઈને બધા લોકો આવ્યા અમારે ત્યાં, અને આવીને એમને જે પાણીનું જે સ્તર છે જમીનની અંદર એ જોયું। પછી અમારા ખેડૂતોની એક યુનિટી બનાવી અને એ યુનિટી દ્વારા અમને સોલર પંપ આપવામાં આવ્યો। સોલર પંપ પછી અમને ખાસ કરીને પાઇપલાઇન નાખી આપવામાં આવી। ખેતરના દરેક એનું જે ચોક્કસ પ્લાનિંગ કરીને કેવી રીતના પાણી ક્યાં જશે એ પ્રમાણે દરેક ખેતર સુધી કુંડીઓ બનાવી આપવામાં આવી, જેથી કરીને અમે સરળતાથી જે પાઇપ લંબાવવા પડતા હતા એમાંથી અમે બહાર આવી ગયા અને અમે સરળતાથી અમારા ખેતરની અંદર પાણી આપી શક્યા। એમાં સોનામાં સુગંધ કહી શકાય કે દિનેશભાઈએ અમને એમના દ્વારા એક ડ્રીપ એરિગેશન કરી આપવામાં આવ્યું. તો ડ્રીપ સાથે અમે મક્કા વગેરેની ખેતી કરતા હતા, લેકિન દિનેશભાઈને જો ડ્રીપ એરિગેશન અને મલ્ચિંગની ખેતી, તો અમે રવિ પાકમાં વિવિધ શાકભાજીના પાકો કરવા લાગ્યા. એમાંથી અમારું ઉપાર્જન બમણુંથી વધારે પણ થઈ ગયું, કારણ કે જે અમે ચીલા ચાલુ રીતે ફ્લડથી ખેતી કરતા હતા એમાં ઉત્પાદન ઓછું મળતું હતું, પણ જ્યારે મલ્ચિંગ કરવામાં આવી ત્યારે ઉત્પાદન વધી ગયું. સાથે જ્યારે ફ્લડથી ખેતી કરતા હતા ત્યારે ઘણું બધું ઘાસ પણ ઉગી જતું હતું અન્ય, કે જેમાં અમને મંજૂરી પણ બહુ લાગતી હતી. તો એમાંથી પણ અમે બહાર આવી ગયા. સાથે ખાસ કરીને અમારો જે એરિયા છે એ સ્લોપિંગવાળી જમીન છે. આમ તો જ્યારે અમે ફ્લડથી ખેતી કરતા હતા ત્યારે જમીનનું ઉપરનું જે લેયર છે એ ધોવાઈ નીચે જતું રહેતું હતું, જેથી કરીને ઉપરની બંજર જમીન બની જતી હતી. તો એમાંથી પણ અમને મુક્તિ મળી. તો સાથે ખાસ કરીને અમારો જે ખેતરનો બોર્ડર એરિયા છે ત્યાં અમને ચંદન છે, મોગીની છે, સરગવો છે, એવા જે કિંમતી વૃક્ષો છે એ પણ અમે લગાવ્યા. સાથે અમારે ત્યાં વેલાવાળી શાકભાજી, કે જ્યારે ટેરેસ લગાવી અને જ્યારે મરચી હોય, રીંગણી હોય, ટામેટી હોય, એની સાથે ટેરેસ લગાવી દીધી વેલાવાળી, કે જેથી કરીને પણ અમારું ઉત્પાદન વધી ગયું. તો આમ તો ગામમાં મારાથી શરૂઆત કરી, ગામમાં લગભગ નહીં, ચોક્કસ 18 પંપ લાગેલા છે, સોલર પંપ લાગ્યા છે અમને જોઈને, અને માંડલીથી જ અમારી શરૂઆત થઈ છે. અત્યારે અમે પ્રાકૃતિક ખેતી તરફ પણ અમારા લગભગ ગામના 50% લોકો પ્રાકૃતિક ખેતી કરતા થઈ ગયા છે. 0 બજેટ ખેતી કરવાની શરૂઆત કરી દીધી છે. આજુબાજુના એરિયાના લોકો પણ અમારા ગામની અંદર જોવા આવે છે, અને આ લોકો અમારે ત્યાંથી શાકભાજી, અનાજ છે એ એડવાન્સમાં પણ લઈ જતા હોય છે. તો આવી ઘણી બધી પ્રવૃત્તિઓ અમે કરતા હોઈએ છીએ. તો સમય ઓછો છે, આપ સૌએ મને સાંભળ્યો, આપ સૌનો આભાર.
Quickly for colleagues who haven't understood Gujarati, he talked about identification of recharge and discharge zone, I mean by Dinesh Bhai and his team. And based on that, selection of the sites for solar irrigation. Solar irrigation was actually with buried pipeline and drip. Flood irrigation actually used to erode his uplands, but now with drip the soil is conserved. Now they are doing agroforestry in the burns also. So I mean there is a transformation which is brought up. Another very essential point that he said was they are doing cropping of short duration but high, what I'll say, which gives good return. So those type of cropping, high value crops is something that they are doing. So I mean in a way, I mean the point that is been highlighted is how this nexus is been looked into in a village situation where appropriate groundwater identification is done, appropriate crop selection is done, and hence I mean the planning is helping farmers to thrive. There were few more testimonies, but we really don't want to go into that. Maybe we are open for 1 or 2 questions from the audience.
Thank you for the question. I want to just jump to the big ecosystem. In terms of the ecosystem, the gentleman just mentioned moving into high-value crops, and there was also in the slide a discussion of how the increased irrigation enabled high-value crops. How are you within your system planning linking those crops to market? I realize I'm stepping a little bit beyond the technology, but thinking about it from a systems perspective, how are you helping the farmers and the communities connect to market?
Sure. Actually, I mean, the entire story was not been said. The entire work is actually, there is a 4th element to this nexus, which is market. Any production is done in form of production clusters. I mean, there is a concept of production cluster wherein village like Manli, which is mentioned over here, 4 to 5 villages are coming together, and the entire value chain has been worked out from pre-production to post-harvest. And the post-harvest, the volumes are actually mapped up, and there are already traders who are been either coming into the villages or there is a sale in the nearby mandis. So the entire planning has this market also considered while planning?
Thank you very much. Learning from this experience of village-based, where you are putting together some villages in a cluster at market level, I've seen that when you came from small pumps, you are saying they're efficient, the issues are less than bigger pump. Did you think of at that cluster with many villages linked to the market, where the crops are decided according to the market? You also have like a private operator who is supplying water to the farmers and giving irrigation as a service, where these issues are not on the farmer level but at the local entrepreneur. Have you tried that, or did you find it failing as well? What's the experience?
Thank you. Thank you. Very valid question. If there is some related questions to what the gentleman has asked, we can then club it and try to give an answer to that. Okay. So, sir, I mean, yes, there are some, there are 2-3 kinds of model that we have worked. Again, based on the context, the examples that the gentleman from Odisha just gave was basically in a shallow aquifer system where small sub-HP pumps operate. So, there are around 500, 600 pumps operating in the region which he worked out, which he said. So, these are all subsurface pump. The example of Manli village is of a group-based irrigation system in a hard rock aquifer. The context is a indigenous a setup is indigenous community where there is already a traditional glue to bring together the community. The third is the water enterprise model that we have worked up, but these are mostly in the Indo-Gangetic plains where the aquifer is shallow. And over there is already an established water market. So this model we are working up with IMI, Shilpa is in the room. So this model we are working mostly in the places where there is shallow aquifer, water market is established. So there is a transition from diesel pump directly to a solar pump. So that model also we are trying out. And there are private enterprises again in this area. One example is Urja is one company who are actually, they are establishing this particular model as a business, selling water to the farmers. So these last two models are completely in Indo-Gangetic plains where aquifers are shallow.
I wanted to learn how the success rate when it goes private compared to the cooperative or farmer based. We want to learn and take it to Africa.
Would you like to answer this?
Let's take it to the man.
I don't think we have answers yet. We've been trying different models. Each of these is at a very small scale. We are at a scale of 1 or 2 pilots, right? Urja is sitting here. They've done about 100 irrigation schemes. This is a private company which is investing in the systems and offering service. And they have also mixed results. We are also working with them. The community or the village level entrepreneur scheme, that's also being tried. There are self-help group women who are taking up solar pumps as micro enterprises and then selling irrigation. This is in Bihar. All very promising at the moment, but still it's too early to give you results which can be taken to other places.
So we have almost short the time. I will request Ganesh sir. Please conclude.
Sorry, I'll be quick on this. I think what we were trying to emphasize in part of this session was the failures that we have actually seen in the whole solar irrigation system. And it's a failure, I would say, for the last 20, 30 years. The whole irrigation system, even say about 30 years ago, we had the same challenges, and the same challenges even continue now. And I don't know how, as a larger community, how we have learned and what we are trying to do different in this whole space. I think 3-4 important elements of failures that one can see is looking at the solar irrigation system as a standalone intervention. The government will say there is a program or a scheme, it will give a pump and it will not look at the other aspects. Then the system basically fails. So that's one what you call important failure that we are seeing. The second important failure I think that Neha emphasized is to actually understand the whole water resource and then designing in the pumping system. Currently, most of the organizations or partners do not do that. It is somebody feels that 5 HP or a 7.5 HP looks big, so let's do that. So oversizing, and then it becomes a challenge. So that's the second level of issues that we are seeing. The third is also at the farmer level in terms of actually ensuring that the farmer is changing the practices to look at the crop diversification, to look at how water management is done, to look at how the whole so-called conservation aspect is in a way looked at. And I think the fourth one is the most important piece is people sitting here in this room is also trying to design it in a manner that we want to do more numbers, but we do not actually think about designing it more meticulously to see how the actual outcomes or the results could be seen in a better manner. So those problems even now continue. They are not resolved. I think organizations like IMI, us, Urja, Schneider, and all of us are trying to actually see if we can learn from these so-called problems or issues, and then we see how we can design it in a manner that we are able to take it actually towards the next level, the point that you mentioned in this case. Also, to just a point to your element here. So if you look at it as a service-based model, the entrepreneur-based model, in places like Bihar and Uttar Pradesh in India, it is working quite well because the region water is better. But if it's in the hard rock area, we actually drilled boreholes and we failed on those boreholes. The entrepreneur also gave upfront money for actually doing the boreholes, but he failed on the boreholes. Now that actually is a big challenge when you are also trying to do a entrepreneur-based model in that particular geography, which again we said let's experiment, but it actually failed, which is again the investment that the end user did and even we did, and it failed unfortunately to look at. So those are also I think nuances that one needs to understand from this particular space. I sincerely thank all of you to be part of this session, and it's been a good learning exercise for all of us. Thank you very much.